Okay, so we are just a few minutes after 6. So to be respectful of everyone's time, I'm going to go ahead and get started. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. My name is Ashley McDonald. I am the Assistant Director of Events and Volunteer Management for Grand Valley's Alumni Relations Office. If you have not done so already, please introduce yourself in the chat, sharing your name, grad year, degree, and why this was of interest to you. As a Grand Valley alumni, our commitment to you is as a Laker for a lifetime. We will always be alongside you and all of our alumni, ready to help you reach your next goals. No matter what stage of your life or career, you can turn to us for a lifetime of support. Tonight's workshop is the first installation of our new graduate career programming series. Through partnership with the Grand Valley Career Center, we are able to offer you in-depth career support that is specifically catered to recent graduates and Grand Valley alumni searching for their postgraduate career. This evening, I had the pleasure of introducing our workshop facilitator, Lisa Knapp. Lisa is a career advisor who works with students and faculty and employers in the communications, humanities, and liberal studies programs. She also works closely with our first and second year students as they begin exploring the world of work. Tonight, Lisa will guide you through programming that will help you develop the skills to identify and articulate your targeted job description, leverage your network, identify potential employers, and set up job search tools. Before I turn it over to Lisa, I do want to stress some Zoom keeping and etiquette rules. The workshop tonight is being recorded. Please be respectful of others participating in the workshop. If you need to conduct business outside of the Zoom meeting, please mute and turn off your camera before doing so. Lisa is going to give you some time to work individually on particular prompts. During this time, please feel free to turn off your camera. Additionally, if you have any questions during this time, they can be directed to Lisa in a private chat. And with that, I'll let Lisa take it away.
Hello, everyone. I am so glad that you are here tonight. And this is kind of an inaugural event, and we are excited that you were interested in participating. We also hope that we can meet some of your goals tonight. We're going to pack a lot in. So you should leave feeling like you've gotten a lot of things started. Maybe everything isn't geared towards you and your style of learning and doing, but hopefully along the way, you will find some things that really get you started well. So I have been meeting, this is the season of the year where we meet with a lot of new grads, right? You are working really hard just to get across the finish line. You got across the finish line and you're like, whoa. And now everybody's saying, what you're going to do, what job you're going to have, where you're going to go to school, what you're going to, right? You've been there. So I was kind of looking through the internet, and I think that I found some visuals that maybe support the way some of you are feeling. And if you are, feel free to give a thumbs up or a big wave or something along that lines. So first of all, you're telling me I have to get experience before I can get experience, right? I think that gets said every appointment that I have with an alumni. How am I supposed to get started if I don't have experience? We're going to understand by the end of this that that's a misnomer. You all have lots of experience. So the next one, oh, get a job, just get a job, right? Isn't your parents and your significant others and your friend circle all saying that? Well, just go get a job. We could strap on our job helmets, squeeze into the job cannon and launch out into the land of jobs, right? Where jobs are just numerous and plentiful. And then some of you have probably had this experience as well, right? Where it's like, is this even a legitimate company or a legitimate job, or am I being invited into a pyramid scheme? And then last but not least, I think when you see a job search meme during your job search, and like Ross, you say, humor based on my pain, right? So we're not trying to poke fun at you. We're not trying to say your experience is not like everyone's experience or is just like everyone's experience. And so suck it up, buttercup. That's not what we're trying to communicate. Just that we know the world of memes are designed to suddenly connect a lot of people that are having a shared cultural experience, right? Across generations, across demographics. And so a lot of us have had this experience that it's just not going the way that we thought it would. It feels like it's super complex. And the truth is the job search process is fairly simple. However, it's not easy. So you see up here are the simple steps of a job search. It really is. There are a lot of experts that define the steps of the job search, a little different language here or there. You may have seen it written down another way, but basically to start, you have to understand what you bring to the world of work. What are your skills, experiences, what knowledge bases do you have? You need to spend some time exploring your options. And that does not mean just getting online and reading job posting after job posting after job posting after job posting. You need to prepare your job search tools. And that is where a lot of people start. They think that if they get the perfect resume in place, if they know what they're going to say in an interview, then the jobs will just magically appear. And the truth of the matter is, we want you to do a little self-reflection and a little world of work exploration before you prepare your job search tools. That's why this part is coming ahead of some of the other next up workshops. So tonight, we're not going to do a lot about resumes and LinkedIn profiles and things of that nature, because in July, there's a wonderful workshop that's being led by some of our recent alum that have gone through this process with their search tools. So stay tuned for that. Get excited, make it a mark on your calendar. Step 4, really setting goals. What is it you're trying to accomplish? How to get organized, stay organized, and then finally network. So simple, remember though not easy. So some of the things that get in our way, and if we can kind of advance the slide, some of the things that get in our way, spending 90 to 100% of our time job searching exclusively online. So 3 out of 4 jobs, let that sink in. 3 out of 4 jobs, which is 75% of the available jobs in the job market, are never posted. You cannot apply for them. You will not see a job posting on Monster, Indeed, LinkedIn, anywhere. It is a need in the workplace that needs to be filled, and for whatever reason, they've decided not to post it. Maybe it's a specialized position, and so to put a posting out would yield 300 applicants that will take time and energy to go through. And so they would rather just kind of spread among their network. Hey, we've got this spot. Sometimes it's they meet a young person, a new grad, somebody who's maybe making a job transition, and they get to know them and they learn about them and they say, wow, I want that person to work for me. And so suddenly they're finding a way to work them into their organization. So 3 out of 4 jobs. So as we're thinking about organizing our job search and our timing, kind of keep in mind that 75% of the time is going to be spent networking, researching, organizing, and the other 25% will be spent looking at those online jobs. So for some of you, that's probably really good news already, because you've just been using the online tools. Another thing that gets in the way is making a decision about a job before we have a choice. A few weeks back, I met with somebody who was trying to decide whether they should work for Meijer, Spartan-Nash, or Gordon Food Service. Very similar roles, very similar companies. And this was the 3rd time we had met. The first time they thought definitely Meijer's. The next time they were like, no, Gordon Foods has this great thing. Spartan-Nash though, people that work there really like it. And so 3 weeks had gone by with this internal debate. What should I do? What should I do? And finally I just said, do you have a job offer from one of those companies? And they were like, no. And it's like, then full steam ahead. Go forward with all of them. And once you have an option in front of you where somebody said, we'd like to continue this conversation further, we'd like to offer you a position, that's when you have a choice. So don't use up all your emotional energy for the job search, because it isn't easy, making a decision before you have a choice. The other thing that we often do is we wait for somebody to respond. And then we interpret a lack of response that we're not worthy of a response. People are very busy in the world of work, and this is prime vacation season. So if somebody doesn't get back to you, odds are good it's just because they didn't get back to you. It got buried in the inbox. Maybe they got pulled away or pulled into other work that they weren't expecting. There's nothing wrong with sending another follow-up email. I don't know if you saw my email from last week or from 2 weeks ago. Would still love to hear from you. But it also is important that you don't wait for one person to respond before you move forward, right? You lose a lot of time that way as well. So Reach out to one person, two person, three person, four person, keep working through your networks. And then as the people start responding, some will be a quick response and then slow action. Some will be a slow response, quick action. Some will just chug right along. You can't predict that or assume what's going on. So keep connecting with people. Don't wait for somebody else to manage your job search. Again, assuming we didn't get a job because of something we did wrong in the interview. Practicing interviewing is good. You can always improve your interviewing skills and your ability to tell your story. But if you've made it to the interview, especially the final rounds, they believe you can do the job. So that should give you confidence, even if you don't get the position. Quite often, if you're there, it's because they believe you can do it. I think I just said that. But it could come down to minutia that you can't control. Maybe you're very similar to somebody else on the team, and so they want to diversify. Perhaps they have been working to learn a new software skill and the other candidate just happens to have experience in that. Their answer will often be, we went with somebody with more experience. Hence that first meme, how do I get experience if I don't have experience? But that is a standard HR answer. So you can kind of almost expect that feedback. Another myth that's out there that gets in the way is we believe that networking makes us look desperate. A lot of people will say in my office, yeah, my aunt has a connection, or my dad's friend said he'd help me meet the HR people, but I want to do it myself. Networking is doing it yourself. If you have the savvy to know that networking is how you tap into that 75% of the hidden job market, then you are already demonstrating that you understand how the world of work functions and that you have the confidence and the savvy to do that. So you do not look desperate if you're networking. You look smart and like you're getting ready to go and taking initiative. And finally, one of the things that gets in the way is we focus on what we want versus what the employer's needs are. And that can really turn a job search on its head. Quite often we're like, oh, I want my job to be, you know, this, and this, and I want to gain this, and this. You do need to set some targets, and we're going to talk about targets later on, but you don't want to set them so rigidly that as you communicate with that employer, as you converse with people in that network, that it sounds like it's all about you. Because even though it is about you, you're going to write letters about yourself and your experiences, it's really about the employer and how you're going to contribute to their company and fill their needs. And so that leads us to our next slide, where we're going to look at how do we know what the employer needs are. There are all kinds of organizations and companies that do job-related research and what skills employers are looking for. In our office, we quite often use NACE. They do a lot of early college data gathering, especially with employers. And so the skill sets employers seek in a new college grads from the the class of 2022, you'll see there problem solving skills, analytical qualitative skills, the ability to work in a team, all the way down to interpersonal skills. Now, these are still broad skills, right? What is leadership? It could be a lot of things to a lot of people. So there's still a need to kind of hone in on that. Is leadership the ability to handle conflict, right? Conflict resolution in a peaceful, productive, harmonious way? Is it being an active listener and having the skills and abilities to give people time to speak into understanding, to ask clarifying questions, and then help a group facilitate a consensus? Maybe leadership is the ability to stand up and cast a vision, right? It can be all different things, and you have different experiences that you bring to the table. But at the end of the day, we know that the employers that are researched for this survey have identified these. And again, a lot of the lists that are out there will look very similar for the set of skills. So this is where we're going to start doing some activities and brainstorming around understanding what you bring to the workplace. So we're going to do 3 different activities. So I would suggest that you get a notebook, a scrap paper. Maybe you're somebody who writes on your iPad or your computer, however you would like to do it. I will say this, that at the end of the presentation, I will ask Ashlyn to share out with everybody who attended, and I believe it's being recorded for later viewing. So if you don't really get to sink your teeth into each exercise that we do, remember, this is just getting us started on that particular step. So I would expect that after you're done reflecting, maybe over the next few days, that you'll do a little deeper dive on each of these exercises. So with that in mind, we're going to first look at the skills triangle. So skills, we quite often think of, I have technical skills, interpersonal skills, leadership skills, right? These big, broad categories. But really, skills and abilities fall into kind of three buckets. The things I know, those are knowledge bases. And I filled this out a little bit for myself just to illustrate what we're talking about. So I was an English major and a communications major. I have a degree in teaching. So some of the things I know are English literature, communication principles, coaching strategies. I also played piano for about 100 years, so I know music theory and performance practices. And I even know a little bit of 1991 graphic design, right? When we worked with Quark and Publisher and Photoshop, things that aren't even hardly functioning anymore. So those are knowledge bases. Things I do, I generate ideas, I perform on the piano, I teach other concepts related to literature, I write poetry. Things I do are often referred to as transferable skills, which means you can do them in I shouldn't say any, but you can do them in many spaces and places. So think about the things you do and then try to deep dive them, right? Don't just say communicate, right? Because that could be motivational speaking, it could be writing, it could be visual art and media, it could be a lot of different things. So really try to push yourself to get into the nitty gritty of it. And then finally, things I am. These are personality traits. Sometimes we learn about them from other people. They'll say, oh my goodness, you're so adaptable, Lisa. You can just go with the flow. That's not always true, but it is fairly common for me. I feel comfortable doing that. Some of them you may have learned from doing some workplace, what are those called? Personality tests and evaluations like Myers-Briggs and StrengthsFinder and predictive indicator. There are all kinds of them out there. True colors. Some of them may just be things you know to be true about yourself. So we're going to take, Ashlyn's going to put some music on for us. Feel free to shut your camera off. I think this screen will stay up so you can see the things I know, things I do, things I am. And we're going to take about 4 or 5 minutes for you to actually get started on your things I know, things I do, and things I am. Questions, remember to send them to me, kind of direct message. Why don't we take one more minute? Okay, if you want to kind of wrap up the last bullet you're on and maybe come back to the screen, we'll do a little debrief. It looks like we've got everybody back, mostly back. All right, if I could hear from maybe two of you, how did this work for you? Easy, hard, never sat down and thought about your skills like this, you were surprised by something, or even you're wondering how this relates to the job search? What are some of your initial impressions? I see Laura has a hand up. So Laura, fire away.
Hi. I find this hard to do.
Okay.
I feel like it's hard to reflect on yourself and find those things that you feel you're good at.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a hard part of the job search for me too, is putting myself out there and saying, hey, am I good at this? I think I'm good at it. People have told me I am, but am I?
Yeah. Odds are good you are, if people are telling you, and if it's something that you've mastered and accomplished, or are starting to learn, right? It's a skill set you bring to the table, but it is hard. You're right. You're 100% right that it is hard to talk about ourselves. And so sometimes what will happen, and we'll come to this with the next slide, sometimes what is easier is to talk about our experiences, right? You know, the reason that I have coaching knowledge and coaching skills and that I've coached people is because I've actually done it. And so instead of bragging on myself, or what feels like bragging on myself and giving a long list, I could talk about my experience coaching college track for 6 years. And during that time, I had the good fortune of working with some All-American athletes. And from that, I learned how to better coach technical sports. I was able to attend a couple conferences. I found a mentor coach who walked me through that. And so suddenly, instead of just saying, oh, I am good at this, or I know this, I'm telling you how it came to be. And I'm talking about my experiences, which feels less like it's braggy, right? But it's still good for some of us to have these underpinnings. One other comment on the skills triangle, somebody who maybe had a feeling over how it went. How about I'll ask this question? Where do you think employers hire from on that skills triangle? What do you think is most appealing to employers? There are no guesses. I will tell you that it's a mixed bag. Sometimes knowing your knowledge bases will inform where you want to do it. So you'll see down here, I have a lot of communications, right? Now, I have no desire to continue on in the world of performance arts. I couldn't anymore anyway, but at the time I had no ideas to do that. But I did like the communication side, right? So I'm a communicator, connector. I had some of the skill sets that might have informed my job search. Like suddenly my job targets might have been Blue Lake Fine Arts Camp and Grand Rapids Symphony and St. Cecilia's and some of the places that work around the fine arts business, that having that experience and that knowledge base would be beneficial. So then if it's two candidates side by side and we both do the same things and have similar personal qualities, that knowledge base could be my ticket into getting the job. Sometimes if you have a very specific knowledge base, that is how you organize your job search. Like, I want to do this thing based on these things that I know. Sometimes an employer will take a chance with somebody who has some personal qualities. They say things like, we can teach them what we want them to know. You know, that's knowledge and what we want them to do. If you have some personal qualities that they value and identify with, that can be your ticket into the workspace. So it's just good to have a sense of, and if this was hard for you, you know, give yourself some grace. It doesn't have to be perfect. Nobody else sees this. This is kind of an internal working document as you're kind of getting ready and moving forward. So then that next exercise, we'll do another one. And we'll take just a few minutes here too. I think a lot of times we want to know what we're qualified for, and we're not sure of what skill sets. We don't want to be braggy, but it's easier to talk about things we've done and skills that we've developed through experiences. So the experience of being a college graduate. Research tells us college graduates leave with skills. These are kind of the top 6. Critical thinking, communications, leadership, emotional intelligence, teamwork, and problem solving. Now, we know that in your classes, not everybody has the same level of everything, right? And that's why there's this line to think about, where do you fall on the continuum? Like, I may be better at critical thinking than I am leadership. I might be fairly decent at problem solving, but you know, I'm a Gen Xer. I don't like to share my work. So maybe I'm not always that good at teamwork. Then what are the skills that were developed through my major or minor? Maybe you have a certification or a badge. Some of them might be in the context of your undergraduate degree or your graduate degree, but some of them might be in outside experiences as well. And then think about your experiences, because you're going to bring that into the workplace. A lot of my skill set was developed being a resident assistant and working in customer service. And then again, what are those personal qualities or accomplishments? And maybe that's how you think about it. We have a lot of students that have hobbies and have achievements that have prepared them for the workplace. We've had people that have climbed mountains. We've had people that have collected saxophones to the point that they're an expert in their field. You name it. So we're going to do the same thing that we just did. Go ahead and turn off your camera, take a few minutes and just work through the columns in whatever way. Try to rapid fire it. We'll take about 4 minutes to do that. if you want to take one more minute. Okay, if you want to wrap up what you're working on and rejoin. How about we hear from two people some feedback? Was this better, worse, gave you a new way to think about it? Are the two related for you? What are some of your thoughts? Karen? Oh, yeah.
I think this was a lot easier for me. It was easier to look at my employer and to think back to what we did in college and some of the group projects or different things that it was easy to look back at specific places where I would do the things, and it was easier for me to do that with this model.
Right. It feels less self-reflective and more just kind of a gathering of experiences and the outcomes of those experiences. Yeah, I've heard that before. Someone else. Oh, there's some hands raised. Adam, I think, has a hand raised.
Yes, I would say for me, this is also a little easier than the first exercise, mainly because I could reflect on like things that happened in my classes. Like, okay, like when I ran into a problem with this certain project or the assignment that I maybe wasn't so sure how to do, or maybe I ran into something with some logistical error, something like that. I could reflect on like how did I work through that. And often it involved more than one item on the list. I have to do some critical thinking about how to solve it. Have to like work together in a team on some occasions, and it's where communication, leadership would also come in. So I think that it was easier for me just to reflect on things that I had done in my previous classes.
Right. Good. Good. Thank you for that. I think what you're tapping into is tied back to that NACE list, right? Is that there are these specific skills, some of them soft, some of them technical, but then there are these underpinning, these experiences that give us evidence that we have these skills, right? So I think sometimes that helps with that feeling that Laura had about, I don't want to be braggy. If I talk about my skills and I can put them in the context of a place that I've used them, and then I can project them onto the employer that I want to work for. This is why I'm interested in your company, because they do career advising or because they do marketing in this way with these tools. That is easier, I think, for a lot of people to make that connection. And it eliminates that this major equals this job, which is true for some majors. If you're a nursing major or if you're accounting, quite often you're going directly into field. Teachers, I work with teachers, but it doesn't tie you to that. There are other things you can do, and it gives you kind of that broad wholesale look at who you are and how this works together. So again, and remember, this is rapid fire. So if you cannot do this next exercise yet because you need some more time self-reflecting, don't beat yourself up over it. But with what we've already done by dipping our toes on a water, I would like you to take, we'll just take 2-3 minutes, see if you can't reflect on this and try writing a summary statement, 3 or 4 sentences of what you would contribute in the workplace. So here's an example. Over the past 4 years, I've developed strong leadership skills related to listening to others, taking time to understand and asking appropriate questions. Additionally, through my studies, some of the technical skills I'm excited to use include creating media kits, writing communications plans, and using a variety of social media tools. Finally, through my study abroad experience, I learned that I have a higher tolerance for ambiguity than I thought. I have always been a highly organized planner and thought that that was the key to success. However, being adaptable and flexible afforded me great experiences I couldn't have planned for. So if you can, into a couple sentences, maybe summarize your takeaway from those first 2 exercises as you understand it now. It doesn't mean forever. So I'll set the timer again and you can disappear and work. We're at the 1 minute mark. So 1 minute left. Okay, if we want to come back to the table, so to speak. Now, writing is a process that everybody approaches a little differently. Some people need to make a little outline. Sometimes we just free flow it and do like a 0 draft. And other times we carefully craft each word as we go. And so that might slow us down, but deliver a more solid product in the end. What was it like to try to write out a skills summary that you might be bringing to the workplace? Did you feel like you're trying to write the first draft of the cover letter? I see some heads nod like, yeah, that really stinks. Hopefully what this will do is be a foundation for you. And again, this is probably the hardest part of the steps that we're going to look at tonight. And I wouldn't expect you to, in 15 minutes, be able to come up with a skills summary that you can articulate for every employer or every person you ever network with. But the more that you can do this, the more you can refine what it is you're bringing to the table, the easier it is to tell your story. So maybe you'll get to the point where you can say something like, I would love to get paid to read, write, and talk. And then you could expand on that, right? Or you might do the more formal introduction. What I hope that this will do is help you avoid some of those standard, hello, my name is Lisa Knapp and I majored in communications and English literature, as well as earned a teaching certificate. And my hope is that I could get my first job in a school district like yours, right? It becomes very generic and we become very rote, and we kind of fall into those traps because we haven't taken the time to really do our own inventory, to think about which skills we want to carry into the workplace and to use those skill sets to target where we want to go, and then tell our story through those lenses. So if this is something that you feel like, oh, this is a place I need more time and energy spent, there are resources on our website. There are a lot of Work Like a Laker podcasts about these things that you should be tapping into and taking advantage of. And you can reach out to your career advisor. You're a Laker for a lifetime. Your career advisor has not gone away just because you graduated. We are still free of charge. So maybe take advantage. I started these workshops or these worksheets with Lisa. I've got them growing and developing, but I'm still having trouble getting it sifted down to where I want it. So next, we're going to move on to the next step now, which is exploring options. I think that this is just some key questions to ask yourself as you're getting ready to explore, because to look into the world of work without a direction literally feels like trying to find the pair of sunglasses my husband lost at Empire Beach in Lake Michigan, right? I could be swimming through every spot on Lake Michigan on the Michigan side. They could be way over on the Wisconsin side or the Illinois side, right? We don't know where they are. So to just jump in and start looking is a hard thing to do. But if we can kind of section things off and tackle a chunk at a time, that is to your advantage. So as you're thinking about exploring your options, here's a couple questions, and you can just kind of, if you want to throw these out or if you want to just jot them down for yourself, but ask yourself, where do I want to live? When I was doing my job search into higher ed, I knew that I couldn't move. I had 5 kids, I had a husband in a career field, and I was going to live where I lived for at least the next decade. So I knew that. Then my secondary question was, what organizations or companies are there that I could work for? And through my research, I found there were 26 universities and colleges that I could have gone to work for. That was my bullseye, right? In my target. The next tier out were, who were people that would use skills I gained in higher ed? And that was places like Goodwill Industries needed career advisors. Michigan Works needed people that could do workforce development. Different companies maybe needed recruiters or university relations specialist. So that was my next tier out. The following tier, well, I like to use my writing skills. I used to be a newspaper reporter. I could always try to break back into that field. So within the where do I want to live, I had these rings, the best out to, I could do this and it would help me get to where I want to be. Then it's another question you could ask yourself, maybe independently or maybe as part of this. Where do I want to work? What could I do there? So I have shamelessly plugged Herman Miller throughout my career as a career advisor. I love Herman Miller. I love them as a company. I think they do great work. I think their workplaces are interesting and diverse, and they have so many good programs that support their employees. They grow from within. It's just a great place to work. So if I woke up one day and said, I want to work for Herman Miller sometime in the next year and a half, I would start researching everything I could learn about Herman Miller from their website. I would talk to people that worked there. I would talk to people that used to work there. I would try to connect with their HR department, and I would start to tell my story about my skill set, hear and learn from people there, and I would start to identify some places and spaces within Herman Miller that I could work. Again, maybe I would work in internship development. Maybe I would work in the design yard where they have people that are creating graphic design. I don't think they need anybody with 1990s graphic design skills, but I could retool and upskill and do those things if that was really my goal. Those would be some of my next steps to reach that goal. And then what do I want to do might be the way you approach your options, explore your options. And then where could I do that? If I knew that I wanted to be a registered nurse in a hospital setting, I would start to look at all the hospitals around that are hiring registered nurses, and I would make my application to the places and spaces that were hiring. Maybe I wanted to be a volunteer coordinator at a mid-sized nonprofit. I didn't care where I lived. Then I would get on LinkedIn and I would start to look for people that are working as volunteer coordinators. I would Google nonprofit volunteer coordinators. I would do a lot of research to find out those targets that I could use. Now, it's likely you'll use some combination of all of these approaches to build your job target list and explore what options are out there. What are some of the things, because you all are an active job search, what are some of the things that you've been using, some of the tools? For instance, and again, I will send these to Ashlyn so that she can share these out, but you know, careeronestop.org is some website that gives you the ability to search by skill set. It gives you the ability to search by company, and it gives you the ability to search by job markets. What are some of the resources that you've possibly used as you're conducting your job search, especially if they've been helpful? I don't know if anything's coming in through the chat, Ashlyn. Okay, so I'm going to share some of my favorites. And like I said, we'll get these written down and sent out with a presentation. Where do I want to live? I would use Spearling's Best Places as a place to do some research about cost of living, schools, housing markets. You can set up a comparative chart and compare like Atlanta to Grand Rapids. And you might find out that your $40,000 job in Grand Rapids is going to buy you a better lifestyle than your $55,000 a year job would in New York City, right? So Spearling's Best Places, reaching out to Chamber of Commerce and economic development organizations. So for instance, here we have a organization called Hello West Michigan that does a lot to help people return to the state of Michigan so they can maintain Michigan talent. A lot of districts and chambers have newcomers services. So you reach out to them and you say, I'm relocating to your area. I want to live in Austin, Texas. And in that reach out, they will send you resources to help connect you with companies that might be a good fit for you. They may take your resume and review it, any number of things. There are professional networks. This spring, I had a ad and PR major who networked herself right into Colorado Springs. She became a member of a young professionals group. She became a member of a women's networking group. They were all holding things virtual and online and had virtual options. And so she got to know people before she ever moved there. She was like a rock star because they're like, oh, you're the person from Michigan. Somebody was talking about you. So it helped her develop name recognition. Our alumni office has great connections, right? Getting onto LinkedIn, going to the Grand Valley page, searching for an alumni in the geography that you're headed towards is a great tool. I would research the top companies, just Google some things. A lot of times we forget that Google gets us all the information we might want. You know, digital marketing companies in Memphis, Tennessee. I would get a big list and then I could start using that list as some of the places where I'd start my research. When I look at where do I want to work, what could I do there? Themuse.com has a great, especially if you're looking at some of the bigger national companies, but they have big, middle, little, and they have for-profit, nonprofit, and governmental job opportunities where they do these company profiles and you can learn about what it's like to work there from employees. I would also go to their company website. One of the things job recruiters tell us is that they'll say, what do you know about our company? And they'll be like, oh, not that much. Have you been to our careers page? No, I have not. You want to do all of that researching, do a deep dive into that company so you know everything about them. That's why if you pick like 10 to 20 to work through at a time, it makes it more manageable. It's like visiting just Muskegon or just Holland instead of all of Lake Michigan. Again, Best Places works, LinkedIn works here as well. And then what do I want to do? There are a lot of industry specific websites and associations. If you go to our What Can I Do With This Major resource on the Career Center website, at the bottom of the What Can I Do With This Major, there are all kinds of links to professional associations connected to that major and to job boards connected to that major. Most professional associations have job boards that are accessible to people that are members, or they'll give you a shortened membership for new grads. because they're trying to entice you to be part of their organization. So those can be really good resources. And the idea behind that goes back to that numbers game, right? They want to advertise and market where they're going to find just their people, as opposed to throwing it out into the big places like the Indeeds and the Monsters and the Idealists and ZipRecruiter. Those are fine sites, but a lot of those aggregate data. They pull from everywhere. And so if you go to a company's website, if you go to LinkedIn Jobs, if you go to industry specific job boards, those are more likely to be real-time postings and more targeted. So the candidate pools will be smaller and kind of line up with yourself. And then any others that, as I was talking, somebody says, oh, I've also used. Okay. And then, you know, set some goals around these, right? Where do I want to live? You know, so my goals around this, we're going to be talking about goal setting in just a second, but maybe your goals are specific to some of these things. Like I want to research living in Austin, Texas, Memphis, Tennessee, and Grand Rapids, Michigan, right? Who are the people you're connected to there? What are some companies you're interested in? What are some questions you need answered? You know, start to build out these buckets and work your way through them. Where do I want to work? What could I do there? That's where you start building out those company names and you think, oh, do we have alumni there? Does somebody in the Career Center have a recruiter that they work with? Can I get into Handshake and look at that company's site and find contact information? A lot of our companies have contact information on the right side of the page so that you can get somebody to work out. So maybe it's I want to explore 3 areas of geography. I want to explore 10 companies, and I want to research places where I can do this one specific thing, or places that use maybe Cobalt, right? A specific technical skill. So any questions about exploring your options? And again, there are a lot of Work Like a Laker podcasts, and there are resources on our website about researching places to work. So if we can flip forward then, prepare job search tools. We've already talked about this. A great workshop coming up in July. I would encourage all of you to attend because your materials are important, and they come together a lot easier when you've got kind of those targets and an understanding of who you are. Then you're just really connecting the dots in your resume, your LinkedIn profile. Then, as I referred to, the setting the goals. Let's see where we're at on time. So we've got a half an hour left. We're going to spend about 10 minutes on goal setting and about 15 minutes on the networking piece, or some combination of that. Setting goals. Why is it important to set goals? We all have heard about goal setting, right? If you write it down, you're 80% more likely to do it. If you name your barriers, I think it goes up to 92% more likely to overcome them. So getting in kind of that mindset of always setting goals, and maybe it's little goals, maybe it's in the next 2 weeks, maybe it's a longer set of goals. That's something only you can gauge for yourself. There's not a magic, trick in this equation, but here are some ways to think about goal setting. And maybe as I'm reading through these, you can be jotting down some of your own. What is your goal? It should be specific, reasonable, and attainable. My goal is to be working full-time by September 1 in the field of supply chain management. Preferably, I'll be working in the Midwest, right? That goal already begs some action. Where are the places I could work in the Midwest? September 1, that's a generous timeline. You could build some action steps in between there. Research the first 10 companies, have 2 networking conversations. Be realistic. All of us would like to be working in 1 week, but not, it doesn't usually happen that way. So set your goal, specific, reasonable, attainable. Why is this type of job ideal for you? Again, this kind of is a little self-reflection. Do you have education in this area, work experience? So this person, not only did I study supply chain management, but my coursework included workplace projects with local employers. Additionally, I participated in 2 internships. One focused on logistics and the other was set within a manufacturing company. So again, this goal setting is also lining up with your ability to storytell. So thinking through these steps. What challenges or obstacles The only way to knock down an obstacle is to know what it is, right? I renewed my lease before I had a job, and now my job search is limited to local companies that do not seem to be hiring. This is something that a lot of people do, right? We're making multiple decisions at one time. Where do I want to live? Do I want to do this? Maybe you're planning with a family or another person. Maybe there are limitations. Maybe there are expectations that you end up in a certain area. Those can be obstacles to your job search, you know, at best, and at the least, they can just kind of suck some of your energy. Like, woe is me. There are only 8 places I can apply. But if you name them, it's easier to think about how to remove these obstacles. You know, this person wrote, I have researched what it would take to get out of my lease, and I believe if I make a salary range of this to that, it would be worth forfeiting my first and last month's rent, right? They did the actual homework. They ran the actual numbers. They didn't just imagine it. I could also ask my family for support during this time. The person that filled this out, I'm sharing with their blessing, even though there are no names on it. But that person didn't necessarily want to ask their family for support during that time, but in the big picture, they felt like it might be the best bet for them to remove that obstacle. So I'm going to stay here. I'm going to be working. If I get the salary range in a really good position, I believe that it would be worth going a little backwards so that I can go forward in the big picture and not delay my job search for another 10 months, right? Your goals or your obstacles might be something different. But thinking of ways creatively, what's realistic, what could you do? Sometimes that motivates us to not have to do that, right? Who will help you reach your goal? Now that you've done some research to understand your opportunities, think about anyone you know who can provide referral, advice, and support. So my professors, mentors, and alumni are great places to start the networking process. And I'm currently building a networking list, which is something we'll start before we leave today. And then what steps do you need to take? And this is part of that getting organized, right? Make a list. It's as simple as that. So different people organize different ways. It looks differently for everybody. You know, maybe Excel spreadsheet, maybe a Jamboard, maybe you have sticky notes on your wall or a vision board. All of those things. Organization looks differently for everyone. Pick something that you would do. People that know me know that if I had a big Excel spreadsheet, I probably would never fill it out. And I would walk around being like, oh my gosh, I've got to get all this stuff into that Excel spreadsheet before I can move on, right? It would get in the way of my ability to move forward. I know where I work best, sticky notes on my wall. But whatever you do, you know, pick one step right away and do it. So maybe as you're setting this all out, you know, you want to start in the middle with the obstacles. What are my challenges, obstacles? I need to figure those out before I can set a realistic goal, right? Or perhaps it's, I need to have an organization plan in place before I get started. So any questions about goal setting as it relates to this? And again, it's circular. You're going to set a goal, reach it, move on to the next set. So the next slide is just talking about organization, right? It begins with awareness of what doesn't work for us. Like I said, I'm not an Excel spreadsheet. I've seen people use Excel and have multiple worksheets. One of my students had it, you know, the Midwest, California, New York City, Atlanta. And then all of the contacts. This is the person I talked to. This is the day we spoke. This is what my ask was. This is what the outcomes were. This was my follow-up. These are the dates I followed up. Next steps, right? If that's for you, that's a good way to go. Notebooks, email folders, vision boards, goal sheets. And then staying organized is requiring some space. I mean, you've all mastered college. You had an organization system that worked for you, or you wouldn't be here as alumni, right? So what helps you keep organized and stay organized? Is it physical space? Do you need to have a place that you just always go and work on this? I've had some people say I go to Starbucks every morning for an hour and a half, and that is my job search time. I've heard from other people that say Thursday afternoons I get out of work early. So during the week when I'm thinking about job search things, I just put them all in one notebook. And on Thursday, I pull that notebook out and it acts as a to-do list for my 3 hours that I have dedicated to the job search, right? If that works for you, that's a good way to do it. But create a routine, create physical space and a way that you go through it. And then maybe find somebody that can help you, hold you accountable. right? Getting with people that maybe you graduated with, or meeting with somebody who's working on a different goal. One of my current job seekers is her accountability person is somebody who's trying to lose weight, right? Searching for a job, losing weight, not the same thing, but both of them require small steps moving forward, making progress and reporting out. So perhaps you're somebody who accountability is helpful. And again, set reasonable goals. It's really easy to hear about all of this and say, oh, I'm going to have 12 networking conversations every 2 weeks. If you can do that, more power to you. But if that is unrealistic, set something that feels attainable. Over the month, I'm going to have 4 networking conversations. Maybe they'll all happen on week 1. Maybe they'll all happen on week 4. Maybe it'll be 1 a week. Maybe you'll get 2 people at one time and you can count that as 2 of the 4. But be kind to yourself and be realistic, because the more that you move forward, the less it feels like you're stuck. So you don't want to already put a hurdle in your place. You're in your own way. And so then last, does anybody have any questions about organization or setting goals, or any hints and tips that they might want to share with the group? Okay, if not, then let's move to the networking part, because as we said, that's kind of the bulk of the job search. So if we could move the screen forward. Oh. Did we lose our screen? I'm going to walk us through the next steps. So networking is about making connections and gaining information. I think a lot of times we shy away from networking because it feels like it's ask, right? Like, give me a job, I need a job. But really, it's a good way to gather information as you're organizing your job search. And it's a great way to professionally and personally embed yourself into community. And really what networking is getting information and building a reputation. So we're going to we're going to do a little work on our notebooks here. And talk about who is in your network. So we're going to start there. A lot of times people are like, oh, I don't have a network, but I bet you do. So I'm going to give some categories, and I'd like you to start just writing down people's names, and do not edit this, right? Just literally write the people as they come to your mind, because what we often do is we count people out before we know if they're valuable to us or not as their job relates to our job search. So first, I would like you to write down 5 of your friends. Then write down 5 of your friends' family members, maybe their parents, their siblings, cousins. So 5 friends, family members. Write down 5 extended family members. Think cousins, second cousins, your mom and dad's uncles, your grandma's siblings. Then you can take another step, and 5 people you were at Grand Valley with, either that graduated just before you or graduated with you. Write down 5 people who either coached you, supervised you, led an organization that you were in. Maybe it's actual teacher. Then try to think of 5 people that live in your town or live by you. So 5 people in your neighborhood or town. You can extend your neighborhood out as far as you need to. Then we'll do one more. How about think of any group or organization you've been a part of or your family has been a part of and write down 5 people from that organization. So maybe a church, a team, a government entity, a professional development, something or another, maybe their company. Okay, so that was a lot of rapid fire writing. Hopefully at the end of 3 minutes, you have 40 people that you've written down or close. Was that easy or hard? Have you ever thought of the people in your life as your network? So once you've got these lists in place, then you can also add who else do you want in your network? And this is where you can daydream a little bit and think about your goals. Do you want somebody from a particular company? You can add this to the list. Is there a particular company or organization? Is there somebody that you admire that you would love to have in your network? You can write those people down. Are there people you should have in your network that you've never thought about including? You could write those people down as well. So now that you have this network, one of the next steps that I would recommend you doing is going through those names and kind of listing, if you know it, where they work, what they do. Often the people in our lives, we sort of know what they do. My kids would all tell you that I work at Grand Valley. I do a lot of email and I do a lot of student appointments, and that they think I get people jobs. You know, when I started this job, I would ask people that I sat in the bleachers with, what do you do all day? I've sat by you for 5 years and I don't know what you do. And people would not stop talking because we don't talk about the work that we do often. We don't talk about what it is the day-to-day like. We don't talk about who we know. One time I had a student in my office who wanted to get into publishing, and I talked to her about networking. We did this exercise. She kept saying, I don't know anybody in publishing. I don't know anybody in publishing. I don't know anybody in publishing. And she got madder and angrier as the appointment went on. And she left really upset. I just sent her a short note that said, clearly you're upset and frustrated. I understand this is simple, not easy. If I can be of further assistance, feel free to come back in, or I can connect you with another career advisor. And about 3 weeks later, I heard back from her. She said, I want to apologize for my behavior. I went home and I was ranting to my mother, and my mother says, well, have you ever talked to Jane next door? She works for that place that publishes Bibles in Grand Rapids. And she had literally lived next to somebody who worked in the publishing industry her entire life and never knew her as anyone but Jane next door. Now, it's not always, we don't all have those great discoveries like that at the last minute, but a lot of us have people that are connected to someone that we should be meeting. And so then the how do you network becomes, you know, if I were taking my list, I would divide them up into people like, who are people that I could mass market to? So maybe put out a Facebook notice, right? That's going to hit family, friends, distant relatives, high school people, people from groups. You know, I just wanted to update everybody on what I'm up to these days. Recently graduated from Grand Valley with my degree in this. I'm hoping to enter into the workplace and take advantage of these new skills that I have. Or I'm currently, you know, exploring my options within the nonprofit world. Or I studied to do this and I had a great experience when I had my internship in communications field. I'm excited to learn more and to make connections over the next few months. You know, putting out a note like that in a general place like that will often yield responses. People that you don't even expect will reach out to you and say, hey, I know this person. Hey, I know that person. Have you ever considered this company? I just saw this job posting. Maybe you should check it out, right? So whenever we can get our network doing the work for us, that's an advantage. So you could do something as simple as a social media post. Maybe you look at that list and you think these 6 people I really need to talk to. And that's how you start those networking outreaches, those informational interviews, where you reach out to a person and you say, you know, I really admire the work you're doing. I am organizing my job search right now, and I'm wondering if I can have a half an hour of your time via Zoom or phone or in person. And I could ask you about your career path, about the current work you're doing and the company that you're doing it in. And I would love to receive any advice you have for me going forward. You're going to get to that experience. They're going to ask you some of what you're doing and some of what your target, who some of your targets are, what some of your goals are. And as you share them, they're going to say, you should talk to this person over at company XYZ. And have you ever considered this? Even though it's not the same thing, it's very similar. Some of your transferable skills, the things you do, would fit right into a role like this that maybe you've never considered before. So, you know, maybe from that list, you have a few people like that. Maybe from that list, you have people you would send direct emails to. As I said, my kids were in sports. Every season, I think we got some letter from somebody who would say, hey, my company is in the process of doing layoffs. I'm trying to get out ahead of the curve. I work in project management, supply chain, and I don't know, leadership. I've attached my resume. Feel free to pass it on to anyone you like. Feel free to send me any leads you might have. You know, so it can look all different ways, right? It can be direct contact. It can be a big, broad blanket you send out to try to cover a lot of bases, or it can be those one-on-one interactions, again, by email, by phone. You can attend events. If Herman Miller is one of the companies I like, I might be watching to see where Herman Miller shows up. And when they show up down at Tulip Times Kids Parade, I might be there just accidentally to meet them and to talk to them. Or if I know Herman Miller is one of the places I want to work and I'm in line at Meijer and I turn around and somebody's wearing a Herman Miller shirt, I might say, hey, I was just learning about Herman Miller. What's it like to work there? Do you enjoy it? I'm not going to do this everywhere I go, but those opportunities are going to start to present themselves. The more that you have a target refined, the more that it is, you know, what you're looking for. And then if we could skip to the next screen. Just a few networking tips. Again, practice introducing yourself whenever you can. It doesn't always have to be in the for job searching purposes. But the more that you say, hello, I'm Lisa Knapp. I, you know, have a background in communications and education. Currently, I'm a career advisor at Grand Valley State University. The easier it is that that rolls off your tongue. When you are networking in person or even on Zoom, remember your body language is important as what you say. You know, I watch a lot of people on Zoom. There are people that sit up, that have their eye contact going, they're taking notes. That feels like somebody who's really engaged. There are other people that are kind of always, you know, sitting back or, you know, moving around, and you're talking to somebody and you're wondering if they really want to be there, right? So Remember body language, open, forward, eye contact. Know why you are reaching out to somebody. What is your ask? What is your why? You know, I am reaching out to you, Lisa Knapp, because you are working in HR at Herman Miller, and that is a company I've identified as a place I might like to work. I'm wondering if I can come in and meet with you for a half an hour to learn about roles within your company that speak to my skill set in communications. Right? So know why you're asking. You're not there to ask for a job. You're there asking for information so that you can make decisions. And then follow up. Oh, people will remember the way you make them feel. If I ask you a reflective question, you have to stop and think. So, you know, hi, Lisa, where do you work? Grand Valley State University. What's the next question I'm expecting? What do you do there? I'm a career advisor, right? But if somebody flips the script and they say, you know, hi, Lisa, I see you're a career advisor at Grand Valley State University. How long have you done that? I go, oh, I've done that 10 or 11 years now. Oh, what's changed during that time you've been there? Suddenly I have to stop. I have to think, oh, what has changed? Well, when I started doing this work, people were looking just in West Michigan, and now people are looking all over the country and they're looking for remote positions. And it's kind of changed the way we network and what we're trying to achieve when we network, right? I'm going to walk away from that conversation feeling really good. And that same is true for those informational interviews. If you're setting up one-on-one appointments, you know, build in some reflective questions that you've prepared ahead of time. People are going to remember that. They're going to feel good. They got to stop and look back at their career in a way that was, you know, good and encouraging, and they can reflect on their own growth. And they're going to leave and they're going to be like, wow, that was a good conversation. I really like that person. I'm going to help them out. And then follow up is key. Write a note, connect on LinkedIn, send an article. The end of last week, I was at a conference and I've already got like 8 people that have reached out on LinkedIn. 2 of them have included an attachment over what we've talked about. You know, think about ways to engage that are genuine and mutually beneficial. And again, networking, there are all kinds of resources on our website, and there are all kinds of Work Like a Laker podcasts that speak to this. So if we advance the slide, questions, we've covered a lot of ground, right? Do you have any questions related to any of this or how it all connects together? And I hope you'll connect to us on our social media. What happens on our social media, I think there's one more slide, yep. What happens on our social media, especially Instagram, is there are company profiles, there are jobs that are posted, there's chances to engage and interact. There's just a lot of good information that comes through there. So, you know, it kind of keeps you in the career mindset. It reminds you that other people are doing this work. And then Ashlyn, if I could ask you to go all the way back to that slide that was the easy steps. Or the simple steps, they weren't easy. Yeah. This is a surprise. I sprung this on Ashlyn. I should have.
Was it in the very beginning or?
Yep, I think it's in front of that. I think it's maybe the first one right in front of that. Yep, there we go. So hopefully today we've kind of hit all the goals. And like I said, just dipped our toes in the water, that you can start to think about how to understand what you bring to the world of work, that you have some tools to start exploring options, that you can think about how to set goals and get organized and stay organized, and that you can network. And again, I can't put enough emphasis on the front ends, right? That understanding yourself and understanding the world of work so that you can find where the two will meet, because we know how to get good materials prepared. We know how to set goals. We know how to network. And those things are a lot more purposeful and meaningful when we know what it is we're after and we know how we can benefit that space we're headed towards. So again, I invite you to interact with the Career Center in any way that makes sense for you, whether it's setting up an appointment with your career advisor. During the school year, we do have drop-in hours daily from 11 to 4. Alumni are welcome at those, and any of the events that we host. Alumni are always welcome to come to those as well. But also don't be afraid just to pick up the phone and say, hey, I'm working through this. I'm wondering if I can talk to the career advisor. And more often than not, there's somebody available. And if somebody is not, they will take your name and number and we will get back to you. So thank you for attending. Ashlyn, I don't know if you have further announcements to make.
Absolutely. I just wanted to say thank you so much for helping us host an informative and impactful workshop, Lisa. And thank you to everyone who joined us tonight. Again, this is just the first installation of our career readiness series. If it interests you, please join us for the second and third installations that are coming up in July, preparing your professional materials and optimizing your professional brand. And at the end of August, know your worth, understanding the job offer. In the meantime, please feel free to check our website, which is gvsu.edu/alumni, or again, the Career Center website, which is gvsu.edu/careers for future events as well as resources. I will be in touch soon with a follow-up email, and thank you for joining us.